Hello all. So today we are going to extract the model and set up the model that we need to import into our background. So what we need to look at is light directions, shadow casting direction, the intensity of the shadows. Those things need to be preset in Rhino. That will give you a smoother transition to Photoshop. So less work in Photoshop, but you can create it, let's say the production here and then the post-production in Photoshop. So today we'll set up the model in Rhino and adding lights and directionality of lights in order to be exported to Photoshop for then to be rendered and inserted into the background. So let's start with it. So we start with opening the file in Rhino, and in your case would be your model. The first thing you need to do in order to get this kind of a visualization, and this is all that it's required for creating a visualization for your project. Nothing else like the terrain or anything else will not be required at this point. So what will go into Rhino is the first thing is, as previously mentioned, also is the creation of lights, and that you can go here to render tools and create a directional light, which is the sun, which is already created in this case. And once you have this light under the properties manager, and in Windows it will be the same thing, you can control its intensity and shadow intensity and everything. In this case I have it into maximum, and this the light, which you can actually rotate and create these shadow effects, can very much be controlled according to your background. So that means if you have a background image like this, you need to see the sun. Where is the sun coming from? If it's coming backwards or from the side, this kind of effect on the shadow on the walls need to be towards the same direction, so from this point to that point. And that's basically what I tried to emulate here, and that's what we'll try to do, and take this element from there. Also, in order to create this more soft and also see the interior, what it was created was a point light. So additionally to the directional light, as a point light, which can also be created from here and bring it down and put it somewhere. In this case, the further, somewhat outside of the model, because if it goes inside of the model, it will act as a lamp or a light bulb. The same thing, the control modes under the properties manager. In this case, I didn't have too much intensity because otherwise it will kill off the shadows, so I put it around here where you can actually see the shadows, but they are soft enough to be projected in that manner. So this is basically the starting point. The second point, so if you are happy with the kind of shadows elements, would be extracting. You can actually render these through the render engine, but we are not going to use that method. We are just going to extract this information or this image and paste it into Photoshop. So for that, you just need to go into this screen, and it to be a simple procedure, which is go to View, Capture, to File, and it will save the image wherever you would like to save it. In this case, what we are going to do is we actually need to take off the grid and all this extra information that is not required. So you don't need the grid or anything like that. And you can actually, instead of going to Photoshop and extract all this information, you can actually do it also here in Rhino. And for that, you write the command display properties, press done or enter, and this basically relates to this display that's around here. So here you can put turn on and off some general settings, but the main element that what we should do by definition, it should be either something like user application settings or solid color, or use render settings, but I would like you to choose transparent. This will create a transparent background ready to be imported into Photoshop. So that would be the first thing. Choose transparent here, and once you go to view, capture, click save to file. Instead of also choosing JPEG, choose PNG. So PNG carries the transparencies, and so that's what we will do. 5, export. So now we have this image, and we can import it immediately to Rhino. Alternatively, what can also be done is you can render it, but it would require to turn on all the elements that are part of the model, like the floors and everything like that, and also on the render settings to fine-tune it in order to export it. So you can also have this and then extract this by deselecting in Photoshop. We will see the case as well. So once we are in Photoshop, you can bring it in the image. So the image that we just brought, we can go to the Photoshop files, and the Rhino. Within Rhino there's going to be two images. The one that we just kind of produced, which is this one, and this element, which is also possible to extract it, and actually it was the one that was used here. So if we open this, what you can extract is, select here the wand tool with the tolerance of 10. Select all the background, right, and delete it basically. So once you have that and deselect, basically we only have this image, which is actually what we also wanted. So we can actually select all the elements, and once you select those, here in this case it's selected the exterior part, but if you want to select the interior, you go to select inverse. Now it's selecting only the interior part, as you see the cutouts, and press C, go back to the image that we had initially, and press V, and it will bring it immediately. So we still have an error here, but we can get rid of it. So this is one way of doing it if you didn't do the PNG file format and transparent background in Rhino. If that's the case, if you actually did do the transparent background, it becomes even more simple, because once you open that transparent background, it comes as this immediately, so you don't need to extract anything. Obviously on the other case you can use the shadows, but in this case you can also use the shadows that are casted on the floor, so it's also the same thing. You select everything. In this case you see the cutout into your image. That means you are selecting all this blank space. What you actually need, select the inverse, and now you only see the cutout around your image, not on the edge anymore. So once you go Control C and bring it back to the space, it's placed here, right? So obviously there's a few issues with this image here, which are basically perspective, and we can try to see where can we place it. So if we place our model here, obviously the perspective is pointing towards this area, which in this case wouldn't be corresponded with the background image. The background image actually defines what kind of perspective. So once you choose your background, then you can go back to Rhino and choose what kind of a perspective do I need in order to put into my specific background. And in this case, it cannot be up there, so we can actually start putting it back there or something like that. And that will be the starting point to our modification and our